the story that I'm going to share with you tonight is a story that I wrote for a very dear friend of mine. And it is called Raven and Bear's Wild Ride. And it goes like this. Once, in the heart of a wide wood, a deep and lasting friendship was formed. There, between ancient pines, met a she-bear and a she-raven. Now, the raven could be extraordinarily bossy, and the bear grumpy, but at heart, they were both troublemakers. And so it was decided that they would adventure forth together. And what a friendship it was. For Bear, though she loved a belly of berries and a deep sleep, could string words together such that it was like hearing a fine flowing piece of music. And Raven, she could see the patterns and designs that danced through this world, and when the two of them saw and spoke together, a sense of wonder touched the heart of the listener. Well, many came to join their conversations. There were chattering squirrels, squawking hawks, grumpy old badgers, playful otters, bright-eyed raccoons, and even the occasional skunk. Raven and Bear guided these others in and out of the deepest heart of the woods. But later, no matter how many had gathered together in wonder, when the sun fell and the moon rose, when the stars burned with a fierce beauty, and starlight wove through darkness to kiss the evening mist, it was the deep and knowing hearts of Raven and Bear who sat in homage to the world's wonders. And Bear would curl up in her cave, and Raven in her tree, and each would know that all was well with the world. Well, many was the path they trod through the woods. But one day, as the two rambled, they discovered the most marvelous thing. For there, at the very edge of the wood, there stood a great green rolling hillside. And at the top of the great green rolling hillside stood a smartly kept and well-painted farmhouse. It took only a few flights in passing to get a lay of the land. The rambling family house, the great red hen house packed to the rafters, and the daily rhythms of the good farmer and the good wife. Looking at that great red hen house, Bear had a glorious idea. "Come along, Raven," she said. "You and I are going to emancipate the chickens." "Emancipate the chickens," said Raven tartly. "And why on earth would we do that?" "Don't you think," said Bear, "that those plump old hens would love to come and wander the woodways with us? To see the starlight after the sun falls and the moon rises?" "Oh, yes, well, of course they would," said Raven. "Let's set them free." "Listen," said Bear, "I know exactly what to do." Well, the two of them thought and planned and plotted together for days upon days, and when at last they knew that they had seen and spoken it well, they went to the farmyard. Now, it just so happened on that bright afternoon that the good wife had gone to market, and the good farmer was down floating the pond in his creaky rowboat, dreaming of sailing the seas. Raven and Bear strode with confidence straight to the doors of the hen house. They threw them open, and they began to speak together of the patterns and designs that dance through this world. They strung the words together like a fine flowing piece of music. And the great plump hens looked up with bright beady eyes, and what they heard was the bossy croak and caw of a big black bird and the grumpy growls of an enormous bear, and all hen broke loose. Pandemonium ensued. The rooster began crowing and doodling at the top of his voice. One or two of the hens hid their heads under their wings, but the others began to cluck with vociferous disapproval. And one or two of the plumpest of the actually launched themselves across the henhouse like feathered cannonballs, and feathers fell, and chicken poop flew. Oh dear, roared Bear, what have we done? Quick, let's get out of here, crowed Raven. Well, with the din and the feathers flying, Bear was completely disoriented. Raven knew she had to do something. She took wing and saw, in the middle of the farmyard, the most marvelous means of escape. For there stood the good farmer's brand new, big-wheeled farm cart. The wheels shone and glistened, and the signs had not even a scratch upon them. Quick, over here, called Raven. I know exactly what to do. Well, Bear shook the last determined hens off her head, and she launched herself through the air to land in the seat beside Raven. Well, the wagon lurched and rocked, and the locked brakes unlocked, and the two troublemakers saw, from the top of the great green rolling hillside, the smartly painted farmhouse and henhouse begin to roll by. Wind began to ruffle through feather and fur. Their eyes dropped and their mouths gaped, and Bear, she hung on to the wooden farm cart with all her might, and Raven hung on to Bear's head with all her might as the cart began to rattle and lurch faster and faster down the hill, and the saplings cracked as they roared over them, and the branches whipped past. Bear let out a mighty roar of delight, Raven crowed with joy, and then the two troublemakers saw, directly ahead of them, appear the sharp drop-off to the pond below. And floating serenely on the still waters of the pond in his creaky rowboat, the good farmer looked up and saw his brand new big-wheeled farm cart go sailing through the air. The wheels shone and glistened, and the sides had some brand new scratches upon them. And seated in the driver's seat, shrieking like banshees, eyes wide and wild and alive, were Raven and Bear. The cart arced with grace through the air and careened into the still waters of the pond. Feather and fur rose on a tidal wave of pond water, and crowed laughter and growling guffaws. And Raven and Bear made their escape back into the woods. Well, they each had a few bald spots on them, but they taped over these with some honey that Bear kept handy and some shiny trinkets that Raven kept handy, and in this way covered over the worst on each of them. That night, the woods rang with laughter as the tale was told over and over again. And oh, they adventured together for many years. Do they travel together still? That I cannot say. For the years have passed, and the paths through the woods have taken many twists and turns. But this I know in my heart. When the sun falls and the moon rises, when the stars burn with a fierce beauty and starlight weaves through darkness to kiss the evening mist, the surest way to know what is well with the world is to hold the true gifts of a true friend alive always in a deep